In 2017, I received a message on Instagram from a stranger, a woman who says she remembers me from the past. I had no memory of this, but out of politeness, we began to talk online. According to her, we had met at a party back in my hometown, Guildford, England. I was the first woman she kissed, and she now identifies as a lesbian. She is a daredevil, excellent with a rifle. She has been known to stand up on a moving motorbike on the highway. She also loves dogs and walking in the park. I remember one time she took us to a private park. She put a gold ring on my finger. If you say you're my wife, you get free admission. She was grateful that I had shown her a truth about herself all those years ago, because now she was happy dating women. For my part, I was glad to have made a new friend. One day, perhaps a year later, as we are driving somewhere in Surrey, she confides in me that she was raped. She tells me all at once that she was raped by a man who she used to babysit for, and that the man was a policeman. She tells me that he pushed her against a wall in his house late one night and said to her, "I'm sorry, but it's just not interesting with my wife anymore." He then forcibly raped her. She took a while to go to the police, and she felt a deep sense of remorse when doing so, not simply because the rapist was part of the state-run establishment designed in theory to protect her, but also she told me because she thought a lot about her rapist young children, whom she knew well. She didn't want them to discover through her testimony the terrible truth about their father. "I'm sorry your dad raped me," she said. After some time, she took the matter to court, and she won. He is no longer serving in the British police. Many of the victims I've spoken to have achieved these small victories, and none of them wish violence against their perpetrators, counter to what one might assume. My friend told me she was becoming a cop herself, to safeguard others. This for me was the moment a light bulb went on. Her response to violence was to get closer, to think more about the family and loved ones of the man who had assaulted her, and to get closer to the institution that had wronged her. I didn't know it, but at the time I was beginning to do the same. A trans female I look up to, Eddie Izzard, talks about standing close to the people you are afraid of, about showing non-victim behavior to people who would laugh at her as a transgender woman. To look at these crimes in the eye instead of ignoring them felt like the only way I could process this form of violence. To try to get closer to those I don't understand, the perpetrators of rape, our collective brothers, fathers, uncles and aunts, who cause pain in this very specific and unspeakable way. Within living memory, and happening right now in Ukraine, women are raped as a tool of war. I began to see the world as a crowd of people with labels over their heads. Rapist, raped, survivor, perpetrator, both. When I talk to people, I began to see the hidden pandemic everywhere, online, in my friend group, in the media. I noticed black eyes under makeup, and I began to see abuse in clubs, in daily life. People ask me how I find rapists to interview. I tell them they are probably friends with one. They might even be one. One interviewee said to me,
"No man is exempt. They've all done something similar. I think everyone's rubbish."
Is this true? I began asking people how it feels to have assaulted someone, how people find strength in their own trauma, how damage on one side is beauty on another, how an absent-minded act can become a catastrophe. I asked my nearest and dearest, and strangers around me who are either survivors or guilty, or a bit of both. What can be learned about rape? How does it occur? How do victims feel later on? What does the perpetrator think about their crime? Oftentimes the media creates two characters when it talks about rape or abuse. One is good and the other is bad. Right or wrong becomes an abstruse popularity contest. I feel like sometimes these lines are not so clear. What is it to read the story of someone who is anonymous in this way, who could be anyone, anywhere? What is it to be blameless, unpunished, unforgiven?